All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rob Frasca. I'm managing partner and co-founder of COSIMO Ventures, and we're a early stage blockchain investment firm. We have a venture fund, Cosmo X. We've got a hedge fund, Cosmo Y, and we've been in the space for quite a while here since we started Cosmo in 2014. We've been in the space since 2017. Many of you have been following us week after week, talking about the basics of blockchain. And today we're going to talk about Web3. And joining me here is one of my partners, Jack Ward. Hey, Jack.
How's it going, Rob? Good to be here
Good,
with you.
good. So we're going to talk about Web3 and what the heck is Web3, right? There's Web2, there's Web1. As you know, I was an early .com guy, so I've been through, Web 1, 2, 3, and everything in between. And a lot of people, just don't understand what Web3 is. So we're going to kind of get to the basics here. And Jack is our fund manager. He's a principal. He's looking at deals all the time. You've been in the space for 7, 8 years. You're deep in this stuff. So let's jump right into it, right? What exactly is Web3 and how is it different from Web 2 and Web 1? Like what's the deal here?
Definitely. Yeah, there's no clear answer here. So I'll try to give a little bit of a new age answer here and then maybe bounce back to you for some, early internet pioneer response there. But essentially what Web3 is, it's what people are calling the next iteration of the internet. So it's the new decentralized internet that is built on blockchains and ultimately owned by its users. So this is taking us from really corporate networks, so networks that are owned by centralized companies like Facebook or Twitter, to these protocol networks that exist on blockchains, are owned by their users, and really operate through code. So what people think, it helps to really define what Web 1 and Web 2 are to get a good understanding of what Web 3 is. So basically what Web 1 was when it was really just static web pages. So that was the sort of read era of the internet, where you could go to a website, you could consume what was on it, the static information, and that was really the whole experience there. And then we started to transition into what we call the write phase, where now you can, instead of just going to a web page and reading it, you can actually interact with that. So that's, like your blogs, your social medias, anywhere that you can actually contribute to the actual content that is being facilitated on that website in that network. So first, just being able to read a static web page, then being able to contribute to what the content actually is and being able to write onto the internet. And now we're transitioning into Web3, which brings in the ownership part of it. And a really good book here actually called Read, Write, Own by Chris Dixon. Highly suggest that if you want to learn more about the topic. But essentially what this ownership piece means is that there are now assets that are native to the internet. So the ownership of those assets is actually native to online. So essentially your asset, which would originally be owned by a company or stored in a siloed database. So you have a game item that's normally owned by Call of Duty or a company that just exists in their databases. But whereas now this asset can actually be native to the internet, so you have sovereignty over that asset, and it's stored across these blockchain decentralized networks.
So
And that's sorry, yeah.
yeah, no. So look, and I've seen this progression, right? Back in the day, 1993, I started a company. It was one of the first financial services on the internet, and it was a website. And we own the website. And people like Charles Schwab and Fidelity and Vanguard, all these financial institutions put their information on our website. We have a stock quote server that is kind of read only, right? That's Web 1. And then Web 2, when I ran Lycos for Bob Davis, big portal, number 2 portal at the time, we had two firms called Tripod, which were personal home pages, and AngelFire, where now you could create your own personal homepage. And then what happened? MySpace came out and it made it easier to put your information out there, but it was still pretty complicated. And then what happened? Facebook came out and it made it even easier to put your own content on the market. YouTube came out, made it so that you could upload your own videos. Instagram, mobile phase. Now all of a sudden you're putting your photos out there. The key is that all that information is going onto their centralized services. And they're the ones making the money off of your back. They're the ones selling the advertising, right? That's Web 1, Web 2, right? I mean, that's pretty much
Yep,
right. Is that
exactly.
it? Right down to the details. So Web 3, then what you're telling me is kind of, well, wait a minute. Why should YouTube own that video? Why can't I, Rob Frasca, own my own video? Right? Why can't it be mine? Why can't I have sovereignty over it? And why
Exactly.
can't I sell it? Why can't I create memberships to it? So now all of a sudden, everybody is a content creator. That's what you're saying here. That's what Web3 is now you have sovereignty over your own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And we can bring this back right to some of the original points that we made in the first few episodes of this webinar series, and just what the benefits and the reasons why we need blockchains and these decentralized systems is that the more you look at it everywhere in our economy, it's really a middleman economy with all these centralized systems that have ownership and control over your data, value, content. That's just how the Web 2 world works. So now that we're transitioning it to Web3, you can get that sovereignty. Assets can be composable, meaning they don't just exist in one company's database. They exist globally, so they can be shared. And this is really that transition from Web 2 to Web 3 that we're talking about.
Got it. Got it. And it's probably one of the things, right, that's driving this whole content creator economy, right? That's, billions of dollars, right? All of a sudden, now you've got people that are stay-at-home moms or, athletes, and they're taking their own content, they're putting it out on the internet, they own it, they control it, and they're the ones making the revenue from it, the profit from it.
Exactly, yeah. And that's kind of, one of the shortcomings of these corporate networks that are owned by the Facebooks, by these extractive middlemen that are really, clipping fees and revenue from creators. So in Web3, one of the major benefits is that it can be peer-to-peer. So since it's all done through this globally accessible blockchain network, rather than engaging through a middleman like a Facebook or an Amazon, you can actually do it directly with another party. So you can sell your assets directly to your consumers as a content creator, your videos to your fans. And there's no middleman taking those 30% fees, that extractive fee that we see in, these corporate networks.
Got it. Got it. So what are the key technologies here? I mean, obviously it's blockchain, but how exactly, how exactly does it work? Like I see this, connect your wallet. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, yep. So, I mean, the internet is built on a stack of all these protocols, which you talk about from time to time, seeing them all, progress. And really, what this new stack is kind of decentralizing trust, is what we like to call it. And that's really powered by, at its core, blockchains, cryptocurrencies, which secure those blockchains and align incentives in these new structures. There's smart contracts, which are self-executing contracts built on code. So you don't need any third party there to execute the contract. It's just going to act how it's originally coded. And that's what allows for a lot of these peer-to-peer systems. And then you have things like decentralized finance, decentralized social. These are sort of the industries popping up in the space, utilizing blockchains, tokens, smart contracts, and DAOs, which are a decentralized autonomous organization, which is essentially a way of having a permissionless and globally accessible sort of structure there where anyone can participate in the value and have a say in what's going on in an organization.
Right. So fundamental to all of this, then, if you really think about it, is, when the internet came out, it was really about creating a communication network. It was about distributing content, but that content was distributed in key silos. And our society was still based on these central repositories, these central kind of institutions of trust, right? So we went from read, and then we went to read write, but the model, that centralized model, never really changed. Right. All of a
Exactly.
sudden, we put banks on, all we did was we had banks down the street, and now we built this great network, and we said, great, let's just connect the bank. Right. Or
Yep. Exactly.
we had a media company who distributed their stuff on TV. And what did we do when the internet came out? We just put that on the net. So, and then what we did was we allowed people to upload their stuff to there. So what you're saying here is that we're now moving away, and this is key, we're moving away from those central structures to more of a network structure, where everybody now on the network really owns the network, and everybody is responsible for their own content, their own participation, their own contracts, their own business, their own transactions. And we don't need these central repositories to clear the trade, or to download the software, or to download the media, or stream the media, right? Is that kind of what's going on here?
Yep, that's exactly right. I mean, if you can take all these systems that we have that are manually done by centralized companies and securely and efficiently operate them through code, then you don't really need that inefficiency of a bloated corporation in the middle. So it kind of, one gives the sovereignty and the rights back to the creators, but also removes some inefficiencies from our system by having that peer-to-peer transacting.
Look, I think this is the next phase of the internet. I personally believe this is bigger than the internet itself, because what it does is it really empowers everybody that's on it. Look, we're getting long here. I want to, we're 12 minutes in. One of the things I do want to talk about is, kind of like the hurdles, right? Because, with new tech, it always starts off difficult, and you're like, what the heck is this? Connect my wallet. How does that happen? How do you see the hurdles of adoption here for Web3? What's going to happen? What has to happen here for this to really take off?
Yep. So I mean, ultimately, the biggest hurdles to Web3 adoption comes down to user experience and regulation. So that's people onboarding to the ecosystem, which we have leaders in the space like Coinbase now making that extremely easy. And then actually working with these new technologies and understanding them, because they are complicated. And I kind of have the viewpoint that there won't be a Web3 where everyone's managing their private keys and signing transactions. So what we look at really closely is something called account abstraction, which uses zero knowledge proofs and other technologies to remove that layer of complexity from the user experience. So what
Right.
that does is it gives people a familiar Web2 experience, just like you'd be engaging with any app as you do with email, signing up, just engaging with it, but then also bringing forward the benefits of Web3 and these new technologies.
Got it. So basically what you're saying is that the plumbing is going to change, but the interfaces are going to be familiar and slowly morph into interfaces that are more in tune with Web3. Right?
Exactly. Yep. And once you remove these hurdles and then you have these extra benefits, that's really when you reach that mass adoption phase. Because the hurdle of adoption and barrier of entry is just very minuscule at that point.
Yep. Yep. Last thing, just talk about use cases. What do you see as an investor, or what are you seeing, coming through as, kind of use cases today, and then ultimately how you see that, ramping up?
Yep. So there's a lot of very exciting use cases going on. The gaming space is a huge one. Content creation stands to be disrupted because that's just plagued by the middleman economy. Being able to engage peer-to-peer, creator to fan, studio to listeners, there's a huge opportunity for disruption there. Everything around tokenization falls under Web3. So taking these previously liquid assets, bringing them on the blockchain, making them composable, being able to work together, being able to borrow against them, making assets programmable is a huge step. Another one is decentralized identity and authentication. Big part of blockchains is being able to verify that you have ownership, that you are what you are, that you have what you say you have. And that stretches across, many different industries and use cases there. So the technologies will weave themselves into a whole plethora of use cases and industries. But then there are some very specific, use cases like gaming, content, decentralized compute and file storage that will be directly disrupted by this technology.
Yeah, look, I think it covers the entire fabric of everything on the internet. I mean, that's why
Exactly.
it's kind of Web3, right? Just imagine now the massive amount of value that's created on the internet every day. And now imagine that all kind of moving up a level to a whole new kind of approach to decentralizing it, to giving people more sovereignty, more control, reducing middlemen, economics, all that kind of thing. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. Well, look, we're getting long on time here. I hope we did a pretty decent job on Web3. It's definitely the next iteration of where the web is moving. And it's definitely gonna, it's got some hurdles and adoptions, but look, I remember back in the early days of the internet, America Online used to hand out CDs to everybody, where people had to dial up to connect to the internet, and now it's ubiquitous. It's in everything. And so ultimately, that's what I believe is going to be the future here with Web3. So thanks, Jack, for joining me and talking about Web3. Hopefully, this was beneficial to the folks listening. And again, thanks for joining us with Coffee with COSIMO. We'll see you next week.
Definitely. Thanks.